Hello and welcome to Books and Us, the podcast about learning about new ideas and getting inspiration from books. I'm your host Ranjit Monga, and every week I talk to authors about their ideas. I take up books in the non fiction category, from which we can get a wealth of knowledge and information.
All communication is based on a trust. If you trust a brand, a person, a product, or a company, then you will engage with it. And this has become very, very strong post pandemic.
Listeners, we live in an age of heightened communication. But what does it mean for companies? How do CEOs navigate themselves in the age of social media to market their products? Trying to make sense of it all is a book written by communication professionals. The title of the book is A Question of Trust. And today we have its co author Paarul Chand with us. Paarul has had a long innings in the communication industry, first as a journalist and then as a documentary filmmaker. She is also a public relations and media consultant. She is also editor PR Moment India, which is a UK based magazine on the public relations industry. Paarul is based in Gurugram. Today, we are also going to focus on how individuals can sharpen their communication skills. This also goes out for social media influencers. Paarul, welcome to this podcast.
Thank you so much, Ranjit. I'm really happy to be here and to be speaking with you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, this book, A Question of Trust, what really does it refer to?
Basically, the biggest thing that has emerged in current times, and especially post pandemic, has made this even stronger, is that all communication is based on a trust between a CEO and his employees, between employees and their bosses, between customers and the brands they buy from. So everything is now rotating around the trust. If you trust a brand, a person, a product, or a company, then you will engage with it. And this has become very, very strong post pandemic. So starting from that, kernel of truth, my co-author Gayatri Rath and me decided to write this book about what is the role of trust in communication, especially for the CEO. So that's how the name came about, that it's all a question of trust.
And also, I think as I was going through the book, that it also means that because of social media, everything is so transparent, and that's why the word trust comes up.
You're absolutely right. So there is a very big trust deficit in the world right now, and social media has only added to it. And the fact that you have AI models like ChatGPT now entering the situation. Recently, you had this event where the winner of a photography contest later revealed that his photograph was done by AI and not by himself, and he wanted to prove that AI can, actually mimic and represent a human creativity and endeavor. So with these kind of things happening, it's very difficult to know who to trust and who not to trust. So social media plus AI has made trust even a more commodity, which is to be sought after. And it doesn't happen overnight. It happens over a sustained period. So trust has never been more important and never in so much shortage than it is today. So that is also one of the big reasons which led us to the writing this book. Although the developments in AI have come almost 2 years after we wrote the book.
So, with so much expansion of social media and the communication, like we are communicating almost every second through our phones, what does it really mean for companies?
It's actually a bit of a nightmare for companies, if you ask me, because this whole thing about the omni-channel approach to communication and marketing has become now given. If you remember, like earlier, it was the ads were the ones which communicated to you, newspapers to some extent about brands. After economic liberalization, newspapers also started communicating to you about brands. But what is happening is now is every person can turn around. You and I, who may not be an expert on a certain company in a sector, can turn around and communicate with it. And like you said, every second we can do so. So it is a very difficult situation with no easy answers. The only thing people have realized is that they have to be available on the channels which the customers are there or their audience is there, and they have to be larger than the company. It's no longer enough to say I produce a certain biscuit or a Coke bottle or whatever. and they also have to show their social conscience on their sleeve. They have to be shown to doing real work to help society, especially after the pandemic. This has become really strong. So it's a very complex situation. Customer, you also see it, and we mentioned this in the book a lot. The entire change in customer service. As Indians, we were kind of used to bad customer service. To be frank, person turned up, did not turn up. We expected it and sort of tolerated it. But what's happening, as you know, with social media is that something doesn't happen. The first thing I'll do is take to social media and tag the CEO, tag the top
Yeah.
leadership. It is a very, very challenging situation. They're dealing with it, and tools have developed. They are very sophisticated tools which track sentiment and who can actually predict that 6 months down the line this could happen if
Okay.
judging from the tone of the tone of the post. Say you take a Facebook post, and a conference I attended almost, in fact, 5 years back, I would say. There was a company which allied with a PR firm called Rudolphin, which had developed this tool, and they had analyzed actually the trends of a company. There are tools which predict you to plan, but you constantly have to be on the ball. It's not, you just cannot say, okay, today I'll not check what's happening. You have to literally move it. And like in a book, I'd actually named it, taking from the persona of the angry young man of Amitabh Bachchan. I'd written in the book that we now have the angry young Indian customer who's not willing to step back and say that this is not, I accept bad service or bad products. So that's a massive change, and it's a major challenge for the companies. Apart from the customer service, one more quick point is that reputations can be destroyed overnight. So yeah. So to summarize, it's a nightmare. It's a problem. The customers at one end, activists and society at large, and the influencers at another end. It's a lot to handle.
And each one of them interacting with each other every second, every minute on social media. Yeah.
Exactly. It has a domino effect. I mean, the sheer quantum of tweets which can happen, or not just tweets, I mean, all kinds of posts. Insta posts, for example, reels can go viral. There's no actually, it's like it just goes on and on. And we used to talk about the 24-hour news cycle in the time of television news, when TV news became we went into live 24-hour channels in the 2000s. But now you're talking about maybe a 60-second news cycle. It just changes so fast. And the only, if there is a silver lining, it also dies down fast. The only thing is it's there forever, but it also dies down fast. It does not, trends don't sustain for more than a couple of hours unless it's something very long term.
Okay, so the book is focused on CEOs. So, what are the main messages for a head of a company?
So I think there are two several messages in the book, but I would say the most important messages are about how to clean up your own communication. To also, a lot of the book is about the importance of the corporate communication and PR departments in companies, which can sometimes be the most ignored departments, since they are a cost center, not a profit center. So I think one of the main messages is for CEOs not to ignore communication, and especially in the post-pandemic, there are enough studies to show that communicators are being involved more in strategic meetings and decisions by CEOs. For the CEOs themselves, we have included detailed plans in the book on how to plan your communication, how to make sure that it is in keeping with your style of communication. If I'm not a person who's comfortable on camera and I'm more comfortable writing, then I should do that. Just because everybody is doing like a podcast or a video blog, it doesn't mean I have to be also do that. If I'm not good at social media, then I should not be attempting social media unless it's happening in a very controlled way by my corporate communication department. So that's the second message. Tailor your communication to what you are comfortable with. That's very important. Find your pace, and then thirdly, be regular at it. Once you found what is it that you want to communicate, can you avoid being on social media is also a big question which is debated in the book. I would say no, you cannot avoid being on social media as a CEO, but you can pick and choose your where you want to be on social media. Maybe I want to be only on LinkedIn. There are people like Anand Mahindra, who's like a case study in Twitter writing.
Yes.
His presence on Twitter is very, very regular and very, very stable and really good quality tweets. And Elon Musk is, of course, in a different category altogether. He cannot be defined by any one book. But yes, even before he owned Twitter, he was an example of how, how he used Twitter. The third very important point we mentioned in CEOs, because increasingly companies are being asked to comment on social issues. In India, CEOs have never been comfortable doing that. Internationally, also, it's a growing trend, especially in countries like USA. They a couple of years back, at the height of the Trumpism, there was a group of US CEOs who formed a coalition and commented on the immigration laws and said they were too harsh. So that was a very outspoken thing and a turning point in CEO communication. In India, we are not very likely to do that. So you could comment on things which make you comfortable, because there are many issues in India. There's caste, there's class, there's religion, there is gender, there is inequity, and now increasingly LGBTQ AI inclusion is a very important issue. So you are not required to comment on each and every issue.
People do expect that they will, if
Yes, exactly.
if they feel something is going wrong in society, that they will put out something.
Absolutely, they do expect it, but you cannot react to that if you're not comfortable. If it doesn't meet your the vision of your company, and every CEO, should they push themselves to comment more? Yes. Should they comment on each and every issue? No. So that is, I think, you have to have a deciding space on what you'll comment on, and that has to somewhere tie in with your brand. If I'm a brand who is and that goes into the space of what they call greenwashing. If I'm a brand which is in hydrocarbon sector, oil sector, mining sector, and I'm commenting on climate change, then there is no, actually, it's a mismatch between what
It
I'm
doesn't
actually
make
doing, and
sense. Yes.
it doesn't make sense at all.
You're saying that the CEO has become the main communicator for a company, actually.
Yes, they always were. The only thing was that they were not publicly seen as communicators. They were only communicating with their employees. So it was that kind of communication outside the company bubble. You never saw them, but now you're seeing them, and now the expectation is much more. So now I would call it like they're like the super spokesperson of the company.
Does that change the role of the corporate communications team?
It does because it does change the role, because they have to come up with a more strategic approach. They can and the good corporate communicators are conscious of that. They can no longer say, I got you 10 clips in last month in this all these papers and 5 clips on these online this thing, and I'm working on a front page article by ET. That was the old communication. Now people, they should, a good communicator should be able to offer strategic advice. What are the communication buckets you want to focus on? What is the one cause that you want to focus on long term, which is in keeping with the philosophy of my company? What is my crisis communication plan? If I'm targeted by what they call activist shareholders, if that happens to my company, what is my plan? Have I practiced it? Can fake news is the biggest problem. Fake news about a product, so that's a very big challenge. So their role, at the bottom line, they have to be much more strategic. It's no longer clip counting of how many, what coverage, as they call it, what coverage have I got you.
And they need to tell the CEO how to navigate this boom of communication.
Absolutely, and that's where the trust factor again comes in. That uh, and this won't happen overnight. The CEO is used to calling on his marketing team, his accounts team, and his legal team. They're not used to calling on the communication team for these interactions. So the more the communication team is able to come forward as a strategic consultant, the more the CEO will trust them and call them in.
Okay, these communication parameters, do they even apply to individuals who are putting themselves out there as influencers or YouTube sensations? How do they communicate for themselves?
Absolutely, the same rules apply with a few twists to it. The most important thing is that ASCII, the Advertising Standards Council of India, has come out with very detailed regulations and rules for influencers. So no, it's no longer the bad old west, wild west of the early days of being an influencer, where you could say anything and get away with it. It's no longer true. Firstly, you have to be very transparent if you are promoting a brand um, or a product or a service. So you have to clearly label it as that. Then people found another loophole in that. They started commenting and promoting in their comments. So even now, ASCII has cracked down on that. And the third thing, rule which happened is that there are, as you know, post-pandemic, there are tons of health influencers who are peddling and everything from immunity boosters to cures for diabetes to cures for PCOD and even cancer and all kinds of supplements and boosters of all kinds. So now the government has said if you are peddling anything, you have to display your medical and health qualifications in every post. So that I know where are you coming from. So that is the first point. When you become an influencer, do go and read up on the rules and make sure that you're not, crossing any of the rules set out by ASCII. And don't forget that ASCII is a statutory body, so they can legally enforce the rules. It's not like some nice things which you have mutually agreed upon, and it's good to implement and good to know, but maybe I won't implement it. It's not like that. You have to legally
Okay.
implement them. So that's the first point. Coming to how do I plan my communication as an influencer, I think the same things apply. What is it that I'm really passionate about? What is it that I'm really like a lot? You need to pick that up because it'll be very smooth. Then, if you try to force yourself into a trend, it almost never works, and you lose the very important point about being an influencer, that you have to be regular in your postings. So that's one. Find what you're passionate about. Again, check which medium are you more familiar with. If you're a reels person, if you're a podcast person, then do it accordingly. If you like writing long posts on LinkedIn, an excellent platform for being an influencer, you can do that. You'll be surprised. There's so many mental health influencers on Insta doing reels. So it's not like a serious subject cannot be taken up on Insta, and only a serious subject can be taken up on LinkedIn. You can write the way you write, what the value of what you write. You have to be totally authentic. The information has to be credible. That's on you. That's your responsibility to ensure all of those things. The third thing is be regular in your postings. The next thing I would say is that try to have a platform of your own where you can go back. Don't forget that at the end of the day, your content which you're posting on social media belongs to them. So it will belong to LinkedIn and Insta. So the rules are not entirely clear about that. It is your content and you can use it, but it's better to direct it towards your own owned website, the way a Flipkart does for the Flipkart Stories website. So if I were to recap quickly the points for to be your own influencer, find something you're truly passionate about, be credible, plan where you want to post and keep at it regularly. Have a bank of 2 months of content before you start, because invariably you're going to miss a week or two, and then you can fall back on some content. Learn how you're positioning your content. Do some news jacking. If something is in the news, try and position your content around that. And most importantly, follow the rules. As like I said, the Advertising Standards Council of India, do go there over to their website and check out their rules and regulations.
Okay, so would you like to offer some tips to people who want to polish their personal communication skills and practice being good spokespersons for themselves?
So, I mean, I think the best tip for being a good spokesperson is that know your material. What is it that you want to speak about? Understand it completely. I personally read it out to myself. Reading it out to yourself is very, very useful because you hear how you sound. So, my first tip would be please understand your material thoroughly. There is no substitute for that. Don't think you can just skim over the material and pass it off as something you know about. Read more, read as much as you can. That's very important. Write out a script if you're not sure of what you want to speak about. I would say write out a script and then throw it away and learn to speak without a script. Practice as much as you can, and you'll get it. And I would even say don't bother about whether I need to speak good English, or bad English, or good Hindi or bad Hindi. I should be clear. If I'm more comfortable in Hindi or any other language, you should speak in that. There is absolutely no need to try to speak in a language you're not comfortable in. But you have to make sure that you speak clearly, speak simply. No need to sound like a. I was seeing this program called Jubilee yesterday, and it said that, oh, this dialogue sounds like there was a poet speaking and not a normal person. And it's true, we have to sound like normal people when we are communicating. But actually, those influences work best to keep it really simple and just talk like a normal person, like you would talk to a friend. So and it's not easy to write that way, but that's the best way to actually practice that kind of writing, and that's the best way to really engage with the audience. I think the tip I would give a CEO is that it's not about communication; it's actually about your mental health, because there is so much pressure. There's never been as much pressure on a CEO as it is today, and there's never been as much pressure to communicate as it is today. Earlier, a consumer may never have come across the CEO of the product or service he buys. Today, I can just tweet him direct. So that takes a mental toll. So I would say that the biggest tip for the CEOs that look after your mental health, get a coach. If you get a mentor, get a coach, get a safety partner, and talk things through in a safe space with a person you trust and who doesn't have an agenda. So it's not really a communication tip, but it's very important for
Hey,
you to keep track of what's happening. Otherwise, you'll come under pressure to communicate each and everything, which is not what you want to do. It's a very important thing. You don't need to comment on each and everything. Um, the only thing is that you may like to go with your passion, but in this case, your passion has to be the company's passion. So that is actually life truth. As the CEO, it cannot be about you. It has to be about your company. So your brand has to mix or match the company's brand.
okay, Parul, that was a great discussion with you about your book, A Question of Trust. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Ranjit. Great speaking with you. Bye.
Well, that was an interview with Parul Chand, the co author of the book on communication strategies, A Question of Trust. If you would like to contact Parul, you can write to her on parul@prmoment.in. That is PAARUL at PRMOMENT.in. If you would like to share about a book or know authors you would like to put me in touch with, you can reach me at podcast@raymondproductions.org. That is RAMONPRODUCTIONS.org. Thank you for listening to this episode of Books and Us. If you liked it, pass the word and subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify. So that's all for this episode. This is your host Ranjit Monga signing off. Till next time, goodbye and take care.